Put that in print. I'm glad those guys died. I really hate homosexuals. Put that in print. Amazing, isn't that? Isn't that? I mean, people look at Roy Moore and his opposition to gay marriage, which was really over the legal authority of the Supreme Court to impose a definition of marriage on the states. They don't have that authority. It's not there. We cannot continue to allow, even if we agree with the outcome, we cannot continue to allow the government to usurp that authority. And so he is standing on a legal basis. And as I said before, many real liberals have said, even though I wanted to see gay marriage, I didn't want to see it done this way. I didn't want to see our rule of law and the Constitution burned down in order to do it. But when you've got somebody like Al Franken, Christians will look at this and say, well, hate the sin, love the sinner. We want to have a better lifestyle for people. We want them to understand that we all struggle with certain things. Some people struggle with drug addiction. It's just, it's in their nature. We all have a sin nature, don't we? And we all struggle with different things. And they'll look at that and say, well, you hate homosexuals. No, this guy really does hate homosexuals. He wants it in print. There's no question about it. And then he goes on to say something else that was also very disturbing. He had written a script where he wanted to parody 60 Minutes. And as in the article, he suggested that they have one of the guys that was back in that was on 60 Minutes back in the day, Andy Rooney, say, I give pills to Leslie Stahl. And when she passes out, I take her to the closet and rape her. And they didn't go there with that. They thought that was a bit over the top to put Al Franken's joke in on air. And then we have Nancy Pelosi. As NTK Network points out, media doesn't ask her a single question about Al Franken. Not at all. I would have liked to have had somebody ask her about the $15 million of taxpayer money that paid off a sexual assault crime. Wouldn't you think that the female leader of the minority in the House would be interested in exposing that? There have been at least two settlements of sexual assault by congressmen. One of them resulted in a $15 million payout, and it wasn't from that guy. It was the Congress that was spending $15 million of your money to hide his crime, and they're still hiding it. Why don't they ask Nancy Pelosi about that? I'd like to get some answers about that. So they're starting to turn on Bill Clinton. They're starting to turn on Al Franken. I find that interesting. But let's get this clip from Gloria Allred. And I said it when it came out, and put the video up yesterday. I talked about in detail what has been exposed about the lies of her testimony. Remember when Gloria Allred did this to Donald Trump just before the election? And it probably would have taken him down because they were coming up with all kinds of accusations, and the sheer volume of them, even though nothing was being proven, the sheer volume of it, the fact that he had never been vetted before in an election, unlike Roy Moore, who has run 5 times and has been well known there for 40 years in politics as a judge, an attorney, and so forth. It would have taken Trump down, I think, if they hadn't gone back and found an email from her begging to have Trump visit her place of business, to reconnect, as she put it. And that dismissed that. Well, the same thing has happened again now with Gloria Allred. This smear book that they put up there, the yearbook, the alleged signature of Roy Moore, there's a lot of questions about that. And so people are asking Gloria Allred, did you vet this? Here's a clip.
But did she see him sign it?
Did you see him sign it? Him sign the book? Did she see him sign the book?
I haven't asked her if she saw him, but we did describe what happened that evening in question, that what she alleges was that she put it on the counter, that I think that he asked to sign, or that he did sign it, that's all.
I asked this because it seems like you're not 100% sure that it is his signature. And if you're not 100% sure that it is his signature, why would you show it at a press conference?
Well, why does anybody doubt that it is his signature?
Because I'm Gloria Allred. Why would anybody doubt what I put up there? She tried to take Donald Trump down with phony sexual allegations that at the time were 10 years old, and they found a 6-month-old email. We've looked at this yearbook, and let me just remind you of some of the stuff that was on it. The fact that it had multiple handwriting issues. When you look at it, you don't have to be a handwriting analyst to understand that there's issues with his signature, not matching his other signatures. The fact that they called it the Old Hickory House and spelled it O-L-D-E, which according to people, it was never that way. The fact that D.A. was after his name. And as he pointed out, he said he didn't ever sign his name as DA. He wasn't district attorney, he was assistant district attorney. But on divorce orders, his assistant had the initials DA. His name was Delbra Adams, and he would put that on the documents and sign it that way. And he was the judge in this woman's divorce. So why would she ask for him to be recused if she was so emotionally distraught about that? Here we are, 40 years later, 18 years after he presided over the divorce, and yet 22 years after he sexually assaulted her, she didn't even ask for him to be recused. Isn't that interesting? So the judge has asked that they get a chance to examine this yearbook. Then, give your body the support it needs with InfoWars Life Prostagard. It's time to start assisting the body in regulating proper prostate balance. InfoWars Life has set out to bring you formulations that are not only the highest quality out there, but formulas that you can use on a daily basis to give your body the natural herbs and extracts that are And so it's interesting that she would stand before him for a divorce case 22 years after the alleged violent attempt at rape and not ask for the judge to be recused. But then 18 years later, she would not be able to contain herself as she recounted it, breaking into tears constantly. And so Judge Roy Moore says, we want to examine this. We want to physically examine this. We want to see if this was a forgery. How old was this ink on here? And so he's given an ultimatum to Gloria Allred, 48 hours to release this yearbook, and he is demanding that the evidence be preserved. He says, I want immediate and professional preservation of the yearbook, reasonable but immediate efforts to create and maintain evidence regarding a chain of custody pertaining to all potential evidence. And I want the yearbook to be released to the custody of our expert forensic document examiner within 2 business days of your receipt of this correspondence. I want to play that clip again because it's absolutely amazing to listen to Gloria Allred and how she was taken back by the question, are you really sure that Judge Roy Moore signed this? Here's that interview again.
But did she see him sign it?
I don't. I haven't asked her if she saw him, but we did describe what happened that evening in question. That what she alleges was that she put it on the counter. That I think that he asked to sign, or that he did sign it. That's all.
I asked this because it seems like you're not 100% sure that it is his signature. And if you're not 100% sure that it is his signature, why would you show it at a press conference?
Well, why does anybody doubt that it is his signature?
Yeah, why would anybody doubt it? Well, because you're Gloria Allred. And we've caught you doing this thing over and over again. Meanwhile, this is an orchestrated takedown. Let me give you just a couple of examples of this. One of the things that was supposedly damaging this week was they had 3 women come forward, and again, second Washington Post story, saying, he asked me out when I was working in the mall at 18, and I turned him down. Isn't that creepy that somebody that would be 10 or 12 years older than me would ask me out? I mean, that's just unacceptable behavior. Then that was followed up by a woman who said, and it can't be corroborated, it's denied by Judge Roy Moore. She said that he did. He said he didn't. So he grabbed her behind. But we got George Bush, who has admitted doing this to multiple women. We've now had over a half dozen women come out. One of them was under 16 years old. And nobody is saying anything about George H.W. Bush. Isn't that interesting? He basically says, don't worry, it was a joke. Oh, that's right, the Franken defense. It was a joke, not a problem. I can grab women by the breast, I can grab them by the butt. It doesn't matter, it's a joke. And they're just the butt of my joke. So it just keeps going on because, if you're Al Franken, he's Al Franken and you're not. He's George H.W. Bush and you're not. And so they can do anything that they want. Nobody is making a big deal out of this. You really got to dig to find out the latest allegations of butt grabbing from George H.W. Bush. But they're not allegations. He admitted it the first couple of times. Just like Louis C.K. admitted it. I said, but I should get a pass because, as one of the writers for CNN said, he's true to his art. Same thing that Harvey Weinstein said about convicted rapist and pedophile Roman Polanski. It's a so-called crime. He's done his time. Let's bring him back. These guys are important. We need politicians like this. Stay with us. Be right back.
Refresh your breath.
Yes, we're going to put people. But even if he wins, he won't be seated. And we won't have to go through this embarrassing thing of expelling him from the Senate, which is what Mitch McConnell's doing. Don't you see how similar this is to what they did to Trump? Saying that if he wins the primaries, we're going to take him out at the convention. We're going to do a brokered convention. It's all the same people again. It's like President Trump. And they ask him the next day, and he basically has his press secretary, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, says essentially what the Alabama party did. We're going to let the people of Alabama make that decision. They're the ones who should make it. They're going to try him in the court of public opinion, then let the election be the judge and jury. And we're going to take a look at the crooked accusations against them. But let's take a look at what happened to Bob Menendez, the senator. He got a hung jury. He did not get acquittal. He did not get conviction. He's now saying that this only came up because he's Hispanic. I didn't even notice that he was Hispanic, quite frankly. I hadn't even thought about it. But they say that the charges were brought. This is the New American. The charges were brought by the Department of Justice, and they look persuasive. These are charges that were not brought by Trump's Department of Justice, but by Obama's Department of Justice. Kathleen Sebelius, who was at Health and Human Services, a Obama HHS appointee, was the one that was also making cases about this. Here's what he was charged with. They say that Menendez intervened with Medicare in order to keep his friend, a very wealthy doctor, from returning some $9 million in excessive reimbursements. They say that Menendez pressured federal officials to protect a port security contract held by a company in the Dominican Republic. They said Melgen, this doctor, is a citizen there, and he is a major investor in the company, that he pressured federal officials from putting that out to bid. So he wanted this to go straight to him. They said that he was paid off by Melgen with various favors, including trips on Melgen's private jet, which he failed to report as required by the Senate. They also alleged that and charged him with making substantial high six-figure contributions to the re-election campaign. They said that he bribed federal officials, committing fraud, making false statements in the process, and more. They had both the doctor and Menendez on trial. One of the things that was not allowed to be put in there was that he was having sex with underage prostitutes. But here's what Judge Napolitano says about this particular trial.
He faces a lot that's coming. The first is a decision by his former Senate colleague, Jeff Sessions, who's now the Attorney General, and it would actually go to that level as to whether they want to retry a sitting senator. They've spent several $1 million in the prosecution. They defended their case 3 times in the Federal Court of Appeals. It'd be difficult for me to see them just dropping this hot potato right now. But I think the most troubling thing for him is the Senate ethics investigation, because the Senate Ethics Committee can look at allegations against Senator Menendez, which Judge Walz, the judge in the case, would not let the jury hear. And some of those are very lurid and are in the area of sexual activity with underage females.
Okay, so that's a trial. That's one aspect that was not allowed by the judge. And then we have the jury, who, after listening to testimony of this long list of charges I just read to you, bribery, corruption, money laundering, and, well, they didn't hear the charges about sex with underage prostitutes, but they heard those other charges. And their response, at the end of it, one of the jurors said, "What is a senator?" That was the question that came out of the jury. So as Judge Napolitano points out, now the question is, will they retry him, or will they have the ethics committee look at this? If the ethics committee looks at this, all of that stuff is on the table. And these are people who know what a senator is. They're senators. So I don't know if politics is going to play a part in it, but there will be a full reckoning of all the evidence, not excluded like it was by that particular judge. Menendez had something very interesting to say, though. And I think as we look at this, it is something to think about, because we have seen this happen in various trials. We see it going on right now in the Bundy trial. We've seen it go on in the trial of Ross Ulbricht and many others. When the government wants you, they will pull all the strings to get you. Here's what Senator Menendez said after the hung jury.
I've also learned about the incredible weight and power of the federal government and how it can crush you if it wants to. What office or department of the federal government gives me back the past 2.5 years of my life? Where do I go to have the damage they sought to incur to my reputation? Where is it? What department is it that replaces it?
What federal department do I go to get back my life, to get back my reputation? You know, quite frankly, Bob Menendez is a hardcore socialist, but that is one lesson that he learned that might actually even qualify him for being a senator. How many senators have seen the government come after them and the full force of the government? If he's innocent, boy, he would be a good senator if he would apply that to other people. I don't think he's innocent, though. Stay with us. We'll be right back. I'm David Knight, and we're going to be joined by Shiva Ayyadurai, who does want to be a senator and is running as an independent now.
You deserve a deep, restful sleep with Knockout by InfoWars Life. Our organic formula is made from high-quality, natural ingredient, fresh to...
We're super chicken. We're leading.
...sensitive skin.
Welcome back. I'm David Knight. We're going to be talking to Dr. Shiva Ayyadurai. He's running for Senate in Massachusetts. And the interesting thing is that he has declared his independence from the Republican Party. He was running as a Republican. And it's going to be interesting to find out why he left, why he declared his independence. I have an idea as we look at what has happened over the last few months. We have seen Mitch McConnell and his Senate Leadership Campaign Fund spend 150 times more against conservatives than they have against Democrats. And that would be before any of the allegations in Alabama. They spent a lot of money against Roy Moore. They spent money against Mo Brooks, who was also running in the primaries. They don't want any real conservatives there. Separate and apart from whatever you think about these allegations, what has surfaced is the actions of Mitch McConnell and others. And now they're running push polls in Alabama against Judge Roy Moore. So they had an event, and Dr. Shiva Ayyadurai declared his independence. They've got some T-shirts there. Declare your independence. The establishment is one. The Democrats and the Republicans profit from war and from sickness. So we'll be getting to Dr. Shiva Ayyadurai soon. Before we do, real quickly, I want to remind you of the sales that we had that we've extended. 50% off plus free shipping. We have Secret 12, our vitamin B12 formula, 50% off plus free shipping. Vitamin Mineral Fusion Drink Mix, 50% off plus free shipping. Super Blue Fluoride-Free Mouthwash, 50% off with free shipping. We also have Caveman and Z-Shield, both of those 50% off with free shipping. Take a look at the reviews we have at InfoWarsStore.com. See what other people are saying about it. This is a third-party review system. We don't curate those reviews. Somebody else does that, so you can see what people think about that. And it's a great time to try it or to stock up. It's 50% off plus free shipping. We also have a new product, Carnivore, an all-new enzyme formula at InfoWarsStore.com. Now 33% off as part of the introductory price. And what this has is a supplementation of digestive enzymes that assist in the digestion process. They increase the bioavailability of nutrients because they help your body to break down the food that you have. And if your body can't digest that food, what it does is it causes fermentation. And it causes indigestion as well as very uncomfortable gas. So what you can do is to supplement your natural enzymes with this. It is a great way to make sure that you're going to get the best out of your food as well as not become uncomfortable with what you eat. So it's called Carnivore. It's a new product, 33% off the introductory price. You can find that at InfoWarsStore.com. All right, we have Dr. Shiva Ayyadurai, who's ready to join us. Again, he's U.S. Senate candidate in Massachusetts, running against Pocahontas. And he was running as Republican. Now he is running as an independent. Thank you for joining us. What's that? Keep going. Okay. We don't have him ready yet. All right. So let's go to another article here, because I want to get into what the Pope was saying about people who are climate deniers being perverse. But before I do, I want to talk about an article we have at InfoWarsStore.com. CNN calls unborn children a special interest group. And says they're just kind of like citrus farmers. Why would they make this strange comparison with citrus farmers? Well, it turns out that in this latest tax reform bill, there is a clause there that would allow parents to begin saving for a child's college before they're born. So once you become pregnant, you can start saving for your unborn child. You can open up a 529 savings account in the name of the child before they're born, and then you can change the names of the beneficiaries later. You can do it before you know what the sex of the child is. And so CNN comes out and calls these modifications, listed as a modification and as potential sweeteners into the bill. They lump this together with, they said this is coming from lawmakers and industries, and they include citrus farmers, alcohol producers, and as we point out in the article, in a display of their indifference to the horrors of abortion, they even include unborn children. What they said in this, they said the idea that life begins at conception is a radical idea. Spokesperson for NARAL, Pro-Choice America, said the sole purpose of this provision in the tax code is to codify the radical anti-choice idea that life begins at conception, to codify that into law, and to begin the process of banning all abortion altogether. You know, we don't want to have anything that would have us look at the heartbeat of a child, or to look at the survivability of a child, or to consider the pain. Do they feel any pain? Don't want to have any of those types of considerations. And, you know, you can be tried for murder if you kill an unborn child. A pregnant lady was killed in the Texas church shooting, and they counted her unborn child as one of the victims of that killer. So it does highlight the lies that we have built into Roe v. Wade, which, by the way, folks, it is not law land. It is a Supreme Court decision, and they don't make law. All right, joining us now, we do have him on the line now, is Shiva Ayyadurai, who has gone independent as a candidate for Senate in Massachusetts. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Ayyadurai.
Great to be here, David. How are you?
Doing good. I think I've got an idea as to why you want to go independent, but tell us, in your own words, why you have now declared that you're independent instead of a Republican in the race for Senate in Massachusetts, U.S. Senate.
Well, I think the fundamental reason, David, is both of these parties are rigged systems. Everyone knows that. And if you look at what President Trump's doing, he's not only trying to get his policies passed, but he's having to fight the swamp in D.C. But one of the interesting things is Massachusetts is in many ways a sewer that feeds the swamp in D.C. All the quote-unquote elite intellectuals come out of here. And what we've noticed is, we've been running an amazing campaign. We were the first to announce on the Republican Party. We've been eviscerating the establishment Republicans and also Elizabeth Warren, the fake Indian. And we've been building such a movement, but the reality is the establishment Republican mass GOP, and I want to distinguish the mass GOP from the broad base of Republicans, because the mass GOP does not want a guy like me even on the ballot. And 4 years ago, they did the same thing to a very good conservative engineer by the name of Mark Fisher. They made sure that he was ousted out of the state convention and never even got on the ballot. He sued and actually won against the mass GOP. Now, since then, the swamp creatures have actually gotten a lot more better at doing this. So they don't want independence. They don't want people to essentially build a broad-based movement against Senator Warren, because in many ways, David, they're in collusion with her. They're going to throw a softball.
Oh, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
She's going to throw a softball to them. And the reality is, there's a video that we put out. We as a people need to declare our independence because the founders of this country never wanted political parties. They're basically monopolistic corporations who survive for their own interests, and it has nothing to do with the people. So I don't want to we dumped the Republican Party because I don't want them to ride on my coattails, because until I got into this race, David, they were essentially assuming that Elizabeth Warren was winning. I'm the one who made the race quite interesting for them. So we don't really want to give all of our power to them when they have no interest in essentially supporting our candidacy in any way.
Yeah, you know what they do, as you're pointing out, they don't really have any fundamental disagreement with Elizabeth Warren on the important issues. They're going to pick some wedge issues and try to make a distinction on those. Abortion is one of them that I just talked about. So the Republicans will talk about abortion, but they won't really do anything about it because they want that issue to continue to remain. When it comes to the issues of warfare and welfare, and the surveillance state, and the Patriot Act, there is no difference on those issues. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Dr. Shiva Ayyadurai, who's now gone independent.
Amazing products. I've been sold out of DNA Force for almost 4 months. Secret stuff out there. Most powerful of them is purpose.
Iodine and nano silver, designed to deliver a powerful clean. Enjoy a minty fresh flavor for the first.
As he wants to be independent of the party system. And we've seen this playing out in the last week or so, haven't we? There is a civil war that is going on in the Republican Party right now. The proxy in that civil war is what's going on with Roy Moore in Alabama. You have to understand that even before any of these allegations, regardless of what you think of these allegations, we have serious reasons to question this, but regardless of what you think of these allegations, the Republican establishment had spent $30 million to defeat him in the primaries, to keep their lobbyist candidate who had a lot of ethical issues, who was appointed by a governor who subsequently had to resign. They spent $30 million to get this guy, keep him from running, and they also spent money against other conservatives in Alabama, like Mo Brooks, who is now endorsing Roy Moore. They spent 150 times more just with their Senate leadership fund, 150 times more against the conservatives in Alabama and a couple of other races than they have against Democrats who are running for Senate. That's what the GOP is doing. They do not want to have people who are going to stand for liberty, who are going to stand for small government. They do not represent the desires of the vast number of Republican voters out there. That's why it's so important when we look at the primaries. But you can see what happens even when you beat them at the primaries. So we're talking to Dr. Shiva Ayyadurai. Tell us a little bit, Dr. Ayyadurai, about what you're going to do there, because we know how rigged this system is. I worked with the Libertarian Party years ago because I didn't want to be part of these two establishment parties. It's so much harder, even as an independent, to get on the ballot in most places than it is to get on as a third party. And they have really rigged the process to keep anyone other than their two parties in. We would have situations where in some jurisdictions, the Republican candidate wouldn't file. And so it was going to be a two-way race between a Libertarian and a Democrat. And so the Republicans would go in after the filing date. They would go into the judge and say, can you set aside that election requirement there? And the judge would say, yeah, sure, we have a requirement. We want to make sure that the people have a choice. So we'll put you on the ballot. We won't even hold you to the regulations that you failed to observe.
Yeah, David, I think you're bringing up a really, really good point. I think you talked about centralization versus decentralization. Both of these parties want to centralize power. If there's a darkness, that's what it comes from. Nature teaches us everything is decentralized. You just have to look at how nature's organized. And what's fascinating about Massachusetts is I think we have an incredible opportunity here to smash that notion because, the revolution, the first shots were fired in Massachusetts. And if you think about it, Harvard University single-handedly is in many ways the epicenter of the sewer that feeds that swamp I keep talking about. Think about Harvard University. It's graduated Mitt Romney, Elizabeth Warren, what taught there, she didn't graduate there, and Charlie Baker. And if you look at
Al Franken graduated from there. Al Franken got a degree in social relations. You've got 4 degrees. You got a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering, another one in computer science. Then he got a master's degree in mechanical engineering and was a visual studies. But still, it's like he got a degree from Harvard in social relations. So we can kind of see the difference in resumes there. But go ahead. You're making a great point about how it is a center of corruption. And we have seen this in the trials against Aaron Schwartz and others.
Exactly. If you look at Harvard University, fundamentally, it's given rise to the swamp creatures who essentially think that they're actually contributing to human society. I'm not saying there's not some good people there, but fundamentally, it's a big contrast from the high-tech workers that MIT generates. And if you look at the results in Massachusetts, just the facts, one of the biggest public integrity organizations rated Massachusetts, the worst in corruption, which means these politicians are really good. Worst in public integrity, best at corruption. It has the 47th worst public infrastructure, subways, highways, etc., and 3 times the national average in opioid addiction. That's what Harvard has delivered. And on top of that, Harvard represents itself as a university. It's actually a fake university that's fundamentally running as a hedge fund. $45 billion hedge fund that does not pay $1 in taxes, David. If you and I started a hedge fund, we'd at least be paying 20 to 25%. So one of the slogans that emerges out of this is in fairness. It's about fairness, and that fairness is let's tax Harvard. And there's a bunch of stuff that emerges when you break away from this two-party system. Half of the judges on the Supreme Court are Harvard graduates. And if you think about it, several years ago when people wanted term limits, they're the ones who overruled it. So these guys are part of this entire infrastructure which wants to maintain power over two parties. So one of the slogans that we put out there is term limits now, and also $1, one vote. What that means is, in Massachusetts, 4.3 million registered voters. That means if you're running for federal office, you should not spend more than $1 per vote, which means $4.3 million. Elizabeth Warren spent close to $100 million last year. The Republicans spent close to $100 million. So why do you need so much money? Because you don't have a message. You're not really resonating with the masses, so you have to pummel them with massive TV advertising. The other thing we've talked about is let's really end student loans. What we mean by that is there's not an open market when it comes to student loans. If you and I started a business, David, and we try to get a business loan, the local business would say, hey, David, show me your business plan, Shiva. Let's look at it. Let's look at your projections. And then they make a decision based on actual due diligence. When they give student loans today, they're not asking that student, hey, what kind of study are you taking? Or are you taking the philosophy of armadillos? Well, that's really not going to get you a job. And yet they give predatory loans to these students. The parents think they need to get these loans. So you have $1.3 trillion in outstanding student loans. And you know what? None of them are going to be able to pay it. And we're going to, again, bail out these banks who are making record profits. So my view is it's not about taking away responsibility, but let's equalize the market, because Bush passed a law that students cannot default. But the reality is I, as a bank, as a business, in an open market, should make very clear decisions. Right now, they're just giving away loans like they used to write the housing loans. And we're on the verge of a massive bubble there. The other big thing we also brought out is no to Monsanto, no to GMOs. We want real food. The Republicans or Democrats do not want to do that. So when we say declare your independence, we're saying the establishment is one. They profit from war and sickness and, frankly, addiction. Mitt Romney made $750 million from aggregating methadone clinics and flipping it. So these guys essentially create swamp economies. And a guy like me who's done the MIT thing, started companies, I'm really represented what the people really want. And I think we're going to have a gangbuster time at this. And we have a huge opportunity not only to defeat Elizabeth Warren, but also to start a wave in this country. Hey, it's okay to go independent and you can win, because it's about the message. And I think people are tired of the nonsense. And I think, the day after we broke away, we're almost polling at around 28 to 30%. The other Republicans are 28 to 30%. What's fascinating is the votes that we're getting, however, are going to be all the people who are pinching their nose and voting for Warren, and then we're going to get a lot of the Trumpers. So this is going to be a fascinating election to watch, but we have to declare our independence, David, from both of these parties. What you're describing about with the Roy Moore situation is, these people are weaponizing sex. That's what they're fundamentally doing. And they can use it as they want, but let their guys get away when they want.
Hang on, we're going to come right back to Dr. Shiva Ayyadurai, who has declared his independence, telling you.
Don't we got some anecdotes where life speed?
Welcome back. We're talking to Dr. Shiva Ayyadurai, and of course, I've interviewed him in the past. He's the inventor of email. He's a polymath. He's a world-renowned systems scientist, inventor, entrepreneur. He's a chairman and CEO of a company called Cytosolve that models complex diseases. He's got multiple technical degrees from MIT. Very interesting man. He's running for Senate in Massachusetts. You can follow him and follow his campaign. Donate to it at Shiva for Senate. That's SHIVA, the number 4, Senate.com. ShivaForSenate.com. He was talking to us about the fact that he has now gone independent of the Republican Party. He's running in a race against Elizabeth Warren, Pocahontas. And he is now running as an independent. And so that is a very interesting move. He understands what a good old boy network it is. And we can see this. We can see how Mitch McConnell is going to try to shut down conservatives across the country. The Senate leadership campaign is not about that. It's not about getting Republicans in Senate. It's about preserving Mitch McConnell's leadership of the Republican Senate. And they don't even care if the Republicans have the majority in the Senate as long as Mitch McConnell is the leader of the Republicans, in my opinion. We can see this from the various races going on across the country, not just in Alabama. And Dr. Ayyadurai, as you were talking about the interconnected network in Boston, it was just a couple of weeks ago, I talked to the wife of Dana Gottesfeld, who is in prison right now, waiting trial, because he was trying to stop what many people have alleged, not just in the case that he was involved in, but in other cases of medical kidnapping at Boston Children's Hospital that is there with Harvard. And when they came to trial, what they saw there was a very interconnected web of influence there. They saw a conflict of interest in the judiciary. So it is a very corrupt system there in Massachusetts. But tell us about your running for independent there. Was there one specific incident, or was it just that as you worked with the GOP, you realized that it was a network of good old boys and you were not part of that?
Well, David, I think it was a series of incidents, where you add them up and you realize that this is a setup. One of the incidents was that we learned that in 2014 there was a conservative guy by the name of Mark Fisher who ran on the GOP to go against Charlie Baker, who's now the governor. In 2014, he goes to the state convention. In order to get on the ballot, not only do you have to get 10,000 signatures, but you also have to get 15% of the delegates who attend the convention to vote for you, to get on the ballot. And that convention typically occurs in April, so there'll be one in April 2018. Well, this guy Fisher goes to the convention, we found out. He had 600 delegates pledged to him of the 2,000 who were attending the convention, which is 30%. And, he didn't think this was going to be an issue. Well, guess what happens, David? He goes to the convention, and he mysteriously gets only 14.9%. Okay?
Yeah.
And people say there was shredding of ballots taking place. They do everything in pencil. So that's one incident. The other incident that we saw, David, was we were going out to the Republican town committees, getting standing ovations, people supporting us, and the Mass GOP didn't even bother contacting us. And we also started noticing that the liberal mainstream media, the Globe and the Herald, which claims to be a little bit more non-liberal, would include pictures of the other three candidates and leave us out. So we started eviscerating that. So you see what I'm saying? So that's what started the collusion. So I didn't want to be holding my hands in my pockets in April 2018 and saying, oh man, they screwed us, right? So, we're not stupid, right? So we decided we're not going to play their game. And why give them all of our publicity? Because we're the ones bringing in some amazing voters on both the quote-unquote left and right. The other thing that you talked about here, David, is this collusion. And, this is why we need to tax Harvard. And when we say that, here's an institution which is a $45 billion hedge fund, and all of these career politicians, and are one step removed from that institution, judges, politicians, lawyers, all of them. And, interesting enough, down the street, as I mentioned, Massachusetts was rated worst in infrastructure, great in corruption, worst in opioid addiction. But MIT has produced 33,000 businesses, David. $2 trillion in revenue per year get generated from those high-tech workers down the street, the quote-unquote nerds. Well, isn't it about time that a high-tech blue-collar worker like me represents a state which is essentially rated #1 in innovation? So I think we have a huge opportunity here. The other big thing, the reason that we went independent is we recognize that, when you look at my policies, David, and what you or I and pretty much anyone listening, anyone who's a rational human being, it's not left, it's not right, it's not Democrat, it's not Republican, it's about fairness, right? That's what we're all coming together about. It's not fair that we have open borders. We should have proper immigration. I would even argue that there's people who are on welfare who do not work, have 2 or 3 wives or girlfriends, whatever, smoking whatever they want to do all day on all sorts of drugs. Those people do not contribute anything to our economy. What's really an American? An American is one who works hard. In fact, I would even argue there are probably some quote-unquote illegal immigrants who actually work for a living. Maybe we should do a visa